Okay, we are hitting the live button. We're for sure on the thing. We're on the feed.
Yeah, should be good. I mean, Andre's not here. Ryan's not here. I mean, what can be better for the whole Acolyte conversation?
I didn't want to say that part out loud, but you saved me the trouble, and I greatly appreciate it because let me tell you, there was a very heated conversation through our text chain today.
I have no problems. I'll say it out loud.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, Andy read my review, so he knows how I feel about it. So
I want to add the context that I don't watch the show, so like for me, like when I read here's the thing, if I read your opinions, I'm not gonna know shit what you're saying. I'm just being like, okay, he has said, let's talk about the show. I don't know what any of this means.
Well, that's a plus, I suppose. I guess it's just Sean and I were going to talk about the Acolyte today.
And I sure as shit don't have as harsh of an opinion as the Doublemint twins that aren't here tonight.
Oh my god,
oh man! Oh, so speaking of. Unfortunately, Dawson's not going to be here either. He had some last minute shit happen to him too. Yeah. So it's just going to be a couple other different people on the stream today. But yeah, y'all know where to go. Y'all know where to go. Everyone should be familiar with this shit by now. At least I certainly hope so. That's the hope. Anyway. Hey, welcome to episode 182 of the Four Nerds. There's only three of us, but that will not stop us from talking about all this shit. It is me, yes, the fourth initiated nerd, Mr. Philip Barker, or as you all know me by Unfiltered. I am joined by my usual chum, who's more or less an Alfred to my Batman, Mr. Nerd Coast and Ocean, better known as Sean, and then my editor-in-chief of Multiverse of Color for the first time, Mr. Andy Babak. How you doing?
Hello.
What's going on, guys?
It's going, guys.
It's going.
Another beautiful day in paradise. Who the fuck am I kidding? This isn't paradise.
Hey, man, it's 6 feet above ground.
Fair enough. That's
we'll call it. We'll call it purgatory. That's what we'll call it. Not paradise. We'll call it purgatory.
Purgatory sounds good to me. Sounds good.
So man, a lot of stuff dropping this week, and it's only
Wednesday.
Only Wednesday.
What do you mean it's only Wednesday? Like it's like like we're like. This it's good because like Monday was like for me as a journalist it was quiet, like it was dead almost. But I'm like, hey, I got bills to pay. I need so yeah, but it's I love that we're but I think probably starting tomorrow it's probably gonna be quiet again because of the holiday weekend.
True. Yeah.
You would think so, but I think sometimes some studios will take that as the opportunity to drop something big because they know it's a holiday weekend and they know that there's the potential of more eyes will see it because they won't be somewhere like at work or school or what have you. But I think that might be one of the perfect times to drop something if you're going to do it.
I mean, we do live in a generation where kids are so into their tablets and their phones, and people are on their phones. How much you want to bet people would rather be looking at their phone than watching fireworks drop? Like they're going to look at a firework and then look down at their phone. They're going to look up at a firework and then look down at their phone again.
Or they're going to be looking through their phone at the fireworks. I think that's more the likely thing. It's like, hey, why? Like when people go to concerts. How many people you see filming the concert? Yeah, how much money did you spend on that ticket to go to the concert to watch it? Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, in my day, we had just the old StarTAC flip phone and a pager. And now, not knowing.
Oh, flip phone.
So say that might age me a bit compared to you two, but you probably never even heard of StarTAC phones before. But
I remember my Motorola flip phone.
Yep.
That was like when I got it, or like here's like my mom or dad got it, and I was like, because I just got a new phone. I think it was like a Nokia or something, and I was like, but that one looks so much cooler. So I'm like, Mom, do you want to swap? She's like, fuck no, in her polite way. So yeah, I was kind of like, but damn it, now but then at some point, like she was like, I don't want this anymore. You can have it, fuck it. And and I remember I would just be, I love to like sometimes I will make calls just to be dramatic for the senses. I could just flip it. Now it's like, fuck you, and then
it
didn't work.
Yeah, like
I
Phil's
know. I
phone,
think I missed that.
he just keeps scrolling. Yeah, 'cause I mean, when I was growing up, we had a pager and you carried around 35 cents. And if you got a page from somebody, you just found the near. I mean, because payphones were everywhere. You just went to the nearest
Right.
payphone and you called, right? So yeah, cell phones weren't as widely around when I was growing up.
Yeah, you know, I didn't have a pager. I was a part of the latter generation that couldn't. We were past flip phones. We were
Mhm.
getting into smartphones. Like I remember people having T-Mobile sidekicks, but
Yep.
I had like this Samsung slider phone that had a keyboard on it. Man, those were the days.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
The
Those
good
were-
old days.
And then my first ever smartphone was an iPhone 4, and that was the first and last iPhone I ever owned.
Yeah, I haven't had an iPhone in, oh man, probably 6 or 7 iterations of the iPhone. Yeah,
Yep.
I disconnected from that part of the matrix.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that.
If I could, I wouldn't even have I think I'm not even sure why I even have a cell phone, to be honest. I think it's
Travis
just
still
primary.
have one.
Yeah, Andy still has one. He's still connected.
Yeah, I have the iPhone 11. It's still working perfectly after all these years. So
Until they
What-
push a software update to brick it. and
What are
then
they up to
push
now?
back.
Like 14 or 15?
I think so.
pretty,
Yeah,
pretty sure it's 17.
it's up there. Yeah, and the last one you had was a 4.
Oh, the iPhone 4 was probably the worst one because it got warm so hot. It got warm so quickly that I'm like especially that's what Phil, where I noticed where I learned it for the first time when I went to Comic-Con and I'm like, I'm trying to take pictures. So I'm like, why is my phone already so like heated up?
Yeah.
Also already out of storage. So I'm like, okay, I
I'm-
gotta be smart about this.
You know, I didn't even think about that, but I'm probably gonna have to delete a bunch of shit. Actually, no, I do pay $1 a month for unlimited Google storage, so I should be fine.
Yeah, just make sure it's backed up already. Then yeah, just delete it off then.
So I should be able to. As far as like my internal storage, I might have to delete some shit.
Well, depending on what type of phone you have, you might have an expandable storage where you can put like a
True.
like a memory card into your phone, because the Samsungs used to do that for a lot of them.
Oh, you know what? I don't think Google does that because mine's a Pixel 5.
Oh, okay.
Gotta-
Okay.
Yeah, but they're up to like Pixel 8, I think.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
Samsung. I have the S23, whatever it is.
Well, yeah, it's been this is. I think there's some people in the chat chiming in about phones, but let's just say hello to some people. We got Daryl Taylor here.
Daryl.
We got
Hello,
RJ.
RJ, what's up?
What up,
going?
RJ?
We got Shree. How you doing,
Shree,
Shree?
what's
Long
up,
time no
Shree?
see.
Sri, what's up?
Yee. Mr. Droga, how you doing?
What's
From
up?
down
No,
under.
Not that guy. I'm kidding. Hi, Axel. How are you?
Welcome to the 4 but 3 today, nerds. Correct. There's only 3 of us here for the day. Live and functioning. That is my current state. And I've said yes. Amen to that. I think we can all definitely get on board with that. What's up, guys? Wait, that's not Andre. You're right. No Andre today.
No, Andre. Yeah,
None
you've
of us
all
are-
been, you've all been spared. You're welcome.
We're all sad. Just kidding.
Yeah, super sad.
Okay. Phil, what do you think of the first Guy Gardner? Because I know I have some things to say. We will get to that. There
Yep.
are some more Superman set photos. I'm sure we all have opinions on, and we will get to them at some point. We're not going to show them in the stream because we don't do that here. We don't showcase set photos from Just Jared or whatever. We don't want to get the stream taken down. We don't want to get hit with a copyright, but we will absolutely talk about them later on in the show. We've got a lot of shit to talk about today. But let's see. RJ says everyone was filming fireworks and looking through their phones on the 4th of July event I went to on Saturday. So yeah, 100% there. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get a smartphone until my sophomore year of high school. I had a flip phone. See?
I was well out of high school. I mean, gosh, smartphones didn't really come around to like almost my early 20s.
Yeah. That's about the time I got mine because I was in college by the time I had mine.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. Hold on real quick.
Dramatic pause.
Okay, never mind. Never mind. False alarm.
Dramatic
False
pause,
alarm.
everybody, but false alarm.
Definitely a false alarm. Anyway, so what do we have on the docket today? There's a lot of shit. You know what? I guess this is first. I guess we can kind of just jump right into it. There were Superman set photos that dropped today of the Justice, what I'm assuming is the Justice League International.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few.
I saw 3. I don't know what you.
I've seen Oh yeah, no, I've seen definitely more than 3, because I know before the show started, they even, at least I saw a new angle of the battle damaged Superman suit he was wearing. Like I said, I saw that maybe 10-15 minutes beforehand. But I think that the one that stood out to me was Hot Girl, her suit. Obviously, I know a lot of people are talking about the Green Lantern suit, but hers stood out to me because of what we saw in Black Adam for
Okay.
Hawkman, and you may recall, folks. I think it was just two nerds at the time when it was just you and I think when the first image of the Superman suit dropped, when he's sitting in the chair. This is, gosh, like a month and a half ago, and
Yeah.
I think we both said then. I think we've been pretty steadfast. Anytime Superman content has come up, that we were always wondering what these other characters' suits were going to look like. I'll say for me, unless these suits, because they all look very similar as far as style, as far as, you know, where the colors are at, as far as how the jackets are. They're all the same jackets, just different colors. Like Green Lantern has his green, and Hawkgirl has the orangish gold color, but all in the same places. So unless there's something a part of the story that's driving them all to have pretty much the exact same suit, but just different colors and their own badge for what they are, and we'll then later see them get something more character specific, like what we saw for Hawkman in Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
We've been pretty steadfast that we were curious of what these suits were going to look like. And I would say if this is the final, like the whole movie, this is what their suits are going to look like, I would say I'm disappointed that this is the route that they've gone. Again, unless it's part of the story and it will somehow change and they'll be more accurate to the character, I'm not in any way blown away by what I've seen thus far. And I don't even need, and usually I would say, well, I'll see a trailer first, or I want to see something of that nature before passing judgment. I don't need to see anything of that nature to pass my judgment on something like this, because there's no color correction. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do to these that's going to completely change what those suits look like to me. So that's where I'm at with those suits that we've seen thus far.
Okay. What about you, Andy?
I hate the Guy Gardner costume.
Just go right out and say it, Andy.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I'm not laughing at you. I am laughing with you, because I thought I was gonna be the only one who fucking hated that costume.
So when it came out,
I guess I'm being too gentle here.
No. I mean, listen. I mean, I'm gonna be reasonable. Trust me. Like, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I saw it and immediately started Googling, did Green Lantern ever have a white costume in the comic? Did Guy Gardner ever have a white costume in the comics? All that came up was just the set photos. Like, he's noticeably wearing a white suit. The thing is, I love Nathan Fillion. He's even though Hal Jordan is not even my favorite Green Lantern, Nathan is always going to be my Hal Jordan. So the fact that he even gets to play Green Lantern now in live action, I'm excited. But so when I see this, I'm like, all he needed,
we miss you, Dawson,
was a black bodysuit and a green vest. What? Where? Like, where? Why? When? How? What? Right. So, but but then when because I didn't put together the idea of Lortek is running all this. So I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Like, it's supposed to, and again, like, this kind of almost feels like a little spin on The Boys, where, like, they're gonna be like, making corporate superheroes, and maybe at some point they quit working for Lord, and that's when we see him in a more traditional costume. Again, it's like what you said. Like, there's no color correction. There again, it is set photo. Again, I think because I was so impressed with the Superman and the terrific set photo, I was kind of like, well, whenever we see Hawkgirl and Green Lantern, it'll be just as swell. And then I was like, we can't have anything nice. So, but I'm hoping that when we see them, again, here's the thing, because I was talking to Rebecca Johnson, who does Supergirl Radio, who's good friend of ours.
Yeah.
She is perfectly spot on that these costumes should have been released in high res, like promotional images before they went out, because, but again, here's the thing, I like, even though James Gunn is kind of like, yeah, he's gonna brush it off, like, whatever negativity he gets for it, but it's like, but it's so simple to just get them for a
Right.
photo shoot, and the things that they've already been doing, like, because at some point there's there's going to be merchandise and marketing coming out and so on that they've already, and they're doing it now. So like, okay, just release some of that now so that people have a good idea of what's coming up. Again, that's why I gave a lot of kudos to these TV shows back in the day. Like, they would, like, as soon as they were about to start filming outside, they would send the press, here's a first look, because they knew that paparazzi photos are most of the times never gonna make it do any justice.
Right.
So I am more keen on the Hawkgirl costume, because I'm still traumatized by how they screwed over Hawkgirl on Legends Tomorrow, and that costume being like very, very weak sauce. Even though I love the actress, so seeing this, I'm like, okay, this feels cool, and I'm definitely excited to see what the CGI wings will look in post. I could not, for the life of me, figure out what Mr. Terrific was like flying in. I'm like, why a jetpack? And why is it so like? Why is it so that? Like, I couldn't, like, it was hard for me to even describe it. So, and I'm guessing that the blue figure that is like next to them, it must be Metamorpho at this point. But yeah, either way, yeah, the Guy Gardner costume was the one I'm like, why? Like, I'm like, let's go back to 2011 instead. Let's go back to the CGI Ryan Reynolds costume, like, at this point. But again, like I said, I'm sure it will look better once we get, again, because we get better quality.
When we see it in motion, maybe an actual legitimate promotional photo of these people in their costume. I'm with you in that. It would have been really easy to have all three of them stand next to Sean Gunn in a Maxwell Lord business suit and be like, Lord Industries. That would have saved so much hyperbolic opinions in regards to these pictures releasing today. But we don't make those calls. I think you brought up actually a lot of really good points, to be brutally honest. When I first saw these photos, and it's on good authority, and I don't even really want to talk about them all that much, but here we are.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about them.
We are, yeah. It's inevitable. It's part of the conversation. It's part of the the nerd culture. So I was coming off my first break from work, and right before I sat down to just start working again, I just popped up my phone and hopped on Instagram, and literally the first thing I see is that photo of Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl with Superman and Mr. Terrific in the fucking chair, and I was like, this looks ridiculous. And more specifically, like Green Lantern, I was like, he looks fucking ridiculous. I was not at all a fan of his costume whatsoever. I like Hawkgirl. I think the helmet, honestly, very reminiscent, if at least from the angle that I saw, it looks very reminiscent of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. So I was like, okay, kudos. Got points for me there. I'm on board with that. The Power Rangers jackets, I can kind of take or leave. But man, it's sad when the best thing about Guy Gardner is that awful bowl cut. And even then, that's just like, okay, so he's blonde now? The strawberry blonde?
They look very blonde.
It looked very blonde. And I'm like, all right, this is Guy Gardner. This is what he's going to look like. He's in a white jacket. Cool. I saw the Green Lantern the logo on his shoulder, and I was like, oh, well, that's from Young Justice, because he did that there too. That's the last time I remember seeing Gardner having the logo on his arm from Young Justice. But that his suit looks like a hot mess. I'm sorry, I can't get behind it. So far, 2 for 4 for me. I like Mr. Terrific suit. I like Hawkgirl suit. That Superman suit and that Green Lantern suit, they need some.
The one thing I've noticed with the Green Lantern suit is, and I'm sure it's been on. I know, Phil, you're not on X or Twitter. I know you're primarily on Threads, and
he's not on Twitter. He's never told me that before. It's not like he never reminds me of it. Sorry.
It's my calling card.
I was gonna say, yeah. But I noticed, and obviously, I don't think this is gonna be a surprise to anyone. It always happens with any new suit reveal. The comparisons start, right? So obviously the two noticeable comparisons I've seen with this suit is the small scene that Zack Snyder filmed for his Lantern, for his Justice League movie.
Right.
And then there's that, and I'm sure you've seen it because it's been out there for a while. There was a fan film that was being done with Green Lantern, and there was some this fan that was doing the film had posted what his Green Lantern suit looked like. And obviously everyone's like, if Zach could do this with where he filmed this scene, in his driveway, and you have a fan who can put together such a great suit as well, but then you get something like this from what's supposed to be like the staple for the new DCU to kick it off. Why does this seem to be a constant problem? Whether it's James, and in this case, it just happens to be James Gunn. I'm not saying it's always James Gunn. It just happens to be him, but more likely a studio or what have you. It seems like they can't seem to get these simple things right, where you have people like you and Andy that see this suit and you're like, really, like how can we just miss the mark so easily on this?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously that pool of fandom who's going to hate on it no matter what, simply because it's James Gunn. And I'm sure they're probably just going to jump at the opportunity to be like, oh, well, Warner Brothers is broke and they want to be as cheap as possible. I don't think that's the case at all. I think this is deliberate. This is clearly his movie and he's going to make it the way he wants to. And he's got a very clear aesthetic. And believe me, props for wanting to integrate Maxwell Lord and having, a version of like Justice League International be a part of this. I think that's an interesting way of saying this is our DC universe. This is a lived-in universe. We're not touching origin stories for almost anybody. Pretty much everyone is likely going to be established outside of the fact maybe one or two characters might get an origin story. I think the only one I could see getting an origin story at this point, as far as the slate currently goes, is probably Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Even though the origin was already covered in that short-lived one-season show, which was fucking phenomenal. I missed that show so much. But I do think like between like Swamp Thing and Booster Gold, the origin stories are going to be very few and far between, probably for obscure, lesser known characters. But as far as like established people who have maybe made an appearance, be it in television, like live action or animation or otherwise, I feel like the universe as it stands right now is just going to be, no, we're not going to like just start off doing a bunch of origin stories. No, like this is a Superman movie. But we have the Justice League International. We have the engineer from the Authority. Hell, she might even be integrated into the Authority by the end of the movie. I don't know. But you've also got Metamorpho in this movie, too. Is he part of the JLI, or is he more in line with Mr. Terrific and the Terrifics? Because that's a very recent thing that happened in the comics, too. I think RJ even pointed out here earlier in one of the comments, I want to see Metamorpho looks like. I'm right there with you. I want to see what Metamorpho looks like too. I want to see if it's going to be, practical makeup or if it's going to be completely CGI. I'm hoping for the former, not the latter, personally. But, it's just nice to see that the universe is going to be established and we don't have to jump through hurdles of, oh, here's this character, here's that character. But
yeah, because I don't think we want to see like 8 or 9 movies for each character before we even get this far, right?
Right.
To your point. So in looking at some of these photos, and these even been, obviously we've seen some video, raw video of some scenes being filmed. I've noted, I haven't seen any reports on this, although I looked, as far as the time period that this is set in, because when you look at when you look at the crowd in the photos or in these videos, when you look at the clothes they're wearing, it's not a modern time. It's not like it's 2024.
Right.
It seems like it's either somewhere in the, the 80s at some point, maybe even the early 80s.
It's set in 1776.
1976?
No, 1776. No, I was just messing with you. I was just
gonna say, I don't know about that.
I feel like there's a blend there because also in another bit of the set photos, behind the newspaper stand, there is like an ad or something like a pop-up ad with a very modern looking vehicle behind it. So I feel like it's going to be.
They said the Data Planet has an app and everything.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a blend of.
Yeah, because I think RJ just mentioned they're going for
retro futurism.
Yeah,
quite possible.
Yeah,
quite possible. I mean, Gunn talked about I think it was on the podcast with Michael Rosenbaum that he does. What is that show
Inside
called?
Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum.
Thank you, that one. Gunn said that there's going to be a very deliberate aesthetic choice to this movie, and it's going to be very visually different from things that have been done before. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that, get behind it. He's a very colorful filmmaker, to put that simply. I mean, he look at his Guardians movies, right? Look at the Suicide Squad. They're all very, I don't want to say bright, but they're very visually colorful, I guess would be the best way for me to say that. Because everyone on this panel and chat probably knows exactly how I feel about James Gunn's superhero movies.
We do, Phil. We do.
But yeah, I'm trying to be open-minded, given the context of the nature of what we're talking about right now. But like we talked about last week, set photos only go so far. I really need to see this stuff in color corrected form, in a trailer, in the movie itself, because really, like, all this does is more or less, it's fun to conversate with like-minded individuals, but it does also create a lot of white noise for a lot of people to just be like, boo, James Gunn, you're kicking our puppies and taking our fucking universe and not doing what we want you to do. Well, that's what creative freedom is. He gets to do whatever the hell he wants, and you're either going to watch it or you're not. That's all there is to it.
Well, and that's been my stance on the Superman suit. I mean, from the moment we got that first image of him sitting, while my opinion still stands, I don't think it was the best way to introduce the suit. Just how he was in that. I mean, have him standing up, right? Even if he's just standing there, because I think that unfortunately what that did was it just kind of pointed out a lot of the questions around it fitting, the questions around him putting in all this work to get in shape, and now it seems like the suit's hiding everything he did to get in shape for this role. Just that type of stuff that people kept pointing out and continued to point out. But yeah, for me, the Superman suit being, I guess, the most iconic of this group of characters. It's obviously a Superman movie. It's definitely one that I will have to definitely see in a trailer, an official trailer, whether it's a teaser trailer or the first official trailer, so we know, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Understanding that there might be some changes that, as they normally do when a trailer comes out, and they start to do whether reshoots or making any final corrections before the final film is put out. But yeah, I'm there with you as far as that goes. But the other suits, though, again, my opinion, there's no manner of color correction that's going to change that for me. I mean, we're talking like the overall aesthetic look, but as you said, it's definitely a James Gunn look and feel for these suits, right? So I didn't expect anything less than that. I think it was more of, I saw what we've got in Black Adam for Hawkman. I would have liked to have seen something. I'm not saying the exact carbon copy, right? Because otherwise, what's the point of just copying, pasting what they did there to bring it here? Two completely different styles, directors, everyone involved. So I knew that wasn't going to happen, but again, I wanted to see at least something a little different than what we got. So,
hey, Dwayne, welcome in, man. Much appreciated.
And again, if some of these characters, again, like, even though like some of them are like probably already, they're already, like, some of them are established already in this universe, there's probably going to be points where, like, but these are still like early renditions of these characters where, like, like Hawkgirl, the reason she doesn't have a feel to as the Black Adam version of Hawkman was, because maybe she hasn't been active as long as he was in that universe. So, I don't think I want to go back to like what I said about Green Anderson. Like, I don't think he looks cheap. I was just kind of like, this is what we're going with for first. But again, it's like, I need to see more. And and the thing is, like, I like James Gunn as a filmmaker. So, like, for me, I'm willing to be like patient and wait, even though like I'm like fuck, I want this movie now. But like, it's I'm willing to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like of two minds about this movie, because like on one hand, I want a successful DC universe and I want to see a thriving universe with a lot of cool characters that I've grown up watching in various mediums or another. And then on the other hand, I'm like, I have like my own personal preferences. I'm not like James Gunn's biggest fan. I don't hate the guy, but it's like his movies for me are like 2 for 4. So the Superman for me is going to be like the make or break film, more or less. but I want to give the movie a chance. But everything I'm seeing, there's really only one thing from this movie that he said that piques my interest, and that's Superman being kind in a world that is not kind. There is an element there that is prevalent through a lot of Superman comics that I do think should be showcased more. Not to say that any other prior version did not showcase it, but I do think that is something that does need to have a bit of a larger presence. Well, we got a $5 super chat here. If you really noticed, Hawk Girl suit and Green Lantern suit have the Maxwell Lord logos. I find that odd. Thank you again for the super chat, Dwayne. Let me just go ahead and get you the explosions that we tend to do here. So I don't think it's odd. I think we kind of talked about this a little earlier.
That's quite a choice for like, like, hey, kudos, here's a clip for you. And so I was like,
make the clip choices. That was all Dawson and Andre and Ryan before I even became a foreigner. That's all them. The bigger ones for Doomsday. So you might see that depending on what happens later on. But yeah, I don't necessarily find it odd. I do think it's a nod to Justice League International. I think that we're either seeing the early days of Justice League International, if not they're outright established, and these are the members that are chosen to come and either aid or see to Superman's problem, whatever that problem may be in this movie. I feel like RJ brought up in the comments earlier, like the idea of maybe being the movie potentially being like a reverse Kingdom Come in a certain respect. And I mean, James Gunn did share a couple Kingdom Come photos all the way up to, when he was, from the time he was announced all the way up to leading up into filming this movie. I mean, the Kingdom Come logo is present on the Superman suit. It wouldn't shock me, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. And that's the thing. Like, that's the thing about these comic book films, is that it's always important to remember, like, these films are never going to be page to screen adaptations, page for page. Like the word adaptation is used for a reason. And I feel like if James Gunn is going to take some heavy inspiration from Kingdom Come as like a foundation for opening up the universe, more power to him.
Well, and I'm all for that, because I mean, I've never, I mean, anyone that has ever heard me on any show knows that the Kingdom Come story is one of my favorites. And I mean, Alex Ross, one of my favorite artists. Yeah, I would, if that's what's being used and we start seeing some of that, but to your point, an iteration of that. Yeah, I'm definitely in for that. I mean, he's obviously using a version of that symbol. Right. I mean, and I've never been quiet about the fact that my preference is the red and black, but again, I'm just happy to see it again, because we saw Brandon wear it briefly on TV, right? But to now see it in a live action film, I mean, that got me hooked right away when I knew that was going to be the symbol being used, even though they're using red and gold for it. So
I wonder if it's going to show up in the Fortress of Solitude in the traditional red and black.
That would be nice if it did.
Like, I'm not trying to get my hopes up, but that's just something that he could or would do, just to nod at that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, like I said, I mean, I would love to see that. But to your point, I mean, we're at what, a little less than a year out from this film even getting released.
I mean, July 11th, 2025.
Yeah, so just a little over a year. And I think that's the point. Some of the points that we've all made here thus far. I mean, again, it's a year out, and so much. I think even RJ mentioned so much of some things haven't even been filmed yet. And what really can you tell from people who are using a smartphone that's probably being done a block away, right? I mean, there's only so much you're going to really be able to tell. And I think the biggest thing is we know, in post-production, a lot of things will get changed, corrected, make to really tighten the shots up. Because I mean, we can't say for any Marvel or DC or the former DCEU that everything that was behind the scenes was absolutely perfect. I mean, a lot of stuff was corrected behind the scenes to make it look as great as it was.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll give it a chance because I'm a fan of the characters, and I want to, in a lot of these characters I've been wanting to see live action of. But I think, as you've pointed out, Phil, in previous shows, I'm not overly excited, like, oh my gosh, I just can't wait for this film. And if you are that, and not you, Phil, but if you are that type of person, and that's your position on this film, hey, I'm happy for you. That's awesome. if you're excited for this film and that is your level of excitement. Me, I just need to see more, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I mean, the same could be said. We've joked about it on the show, I think, over the last couple of months about the Joker film coming out. I'm sure there's very few people out there as excited about the Joker film as I am, and love the first one as much as I do, right? But it's all about your taste, right? So if like what love what you like what you love, and if move on. So
what about you, Andy? How do you feel about Kingdom Come possibly being like a basis for this film?
I am, I've talked to some other people too about like the idea that they might do like a reversal idea of this concept, which again I don't mind. I mean, I love Kingdom Come, but like for me, like it's not one of those stories where like I'll be super mad if in my lifetime I never get Kingdom Come proper in live action, and I'm sure I mean again it's interesting we're talking about Kingdom Come because I think Alex Ross and Mark Waid just announced the other day there's a documentary coming about Kingdom Come, which
right.
I would love to see what they think about this serving as an inspiration or whatever. But yeah, I if this is the way they want to kick off the new DC universe, I really don't have a problem with it. Like I think that like listen, like I'm ready for something new and something different with the DC, and if if this is the way we're gonna go with it, then let's see what happens. It could be the best thing we've ever seen in a while. And then of course, if they ever want to do like a traditional Kingdom Come thing, they could always do it as an Elseworlds, where like they could bring back some older actors who played these roles before in their own universe, and then
right.
But again, like I'm not gonna be like mad if we don't get Kingdom Come properly. Like that's why I'm like I know some people out there who are like really love the storyline. They really want we don't want to see this as right now. We don't want to see it right now. I'm like I can respect that, but the thing I'm like when it comes to Superman story, I just want to see different takes. If it's mixing up comics with things that hasn't happened yet for the Superman, it's perfectly fine for me because again like I haven't watched Smallville for 10 years. I'm used to the concept of like, hey, we're this is a different take on like yeah, like I remember the day when they announced that Doomsday was going to be the big bad for season 8, and people are like, but he's not even Superman yet. I'm like, that's the point of an Elseworld story. It can be different. And
Right.
I remember people were angry that why is he fighting General Zod right now? He's not even Superman yet. Like, why is he fighting Darkseid? He's not even Superman yet. I'm like, bitch, he's all pretty much Superman. He just doesn't call himself Superman. Like he had he has the S on the chest. He's running and saving people. That's all I need.
Of this, I'm glad you brought up Smallville too, because I also think in another way, Smallville did its own thing, but it also did a pretty solid job of honoring things that came before. Case in point, that fight between Superman and Zod, where Zod tells Clark, "You will kneel before Zod." Like that was fucking terrifying. I remember watching that way back when and being like, I think I like that more than the movie.
Never watched Smallville.
All 10 seasons on Hulu if you want to watch it.
I just wrapped Superman and Lois. Well, the first 3 seasons, but
yeah.
Now that I've been watching, but yes, I mean, when Smallville was when Smallville was coming out for me, it was just not that I never saw any of it to say one way or the other. It was just something I never gravitated towards at the time. So, and it's also something I've never thought, oh, I'm gonna go revisit this. Because I know obviously I can watch it, end to end without having to worry about, oh, another season's going to come out and I have to wait, right? So,
to answer your question, Dwayne, it's a John Murphy who scored the Suicide Squad, if I'm not mistaken. Frequent collaborator of James Gunn is scoring the new Superman film. I think it's John Murphy, right? Is this guy's name? John Murphy,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. But yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that throughout the rest of July, we're probably going to see more set photos. I'm kind of holding out hope to see Metamorpho, if they do Metamorpho in a practical sense as opposed to a CGI sense. But we'll see what happens as far as Smallville is concerned, because now we got chat talking about Smallville.
Wise words.
You got that effect, Andy, I tell you.
Yep. I've told you, like, I'm Small's biggest dick rider. I will, like, if I have to, like, if I had an agenda, if I had a propaganda in my life, it would be that I want every person on this planet to watch Smallville before they
No,
die.
fair enough. Fair enough. Does that include reading the comic book 2, season 11?
Yes, because it's that good.
I picked that up immediately after the show ended. Well, okay, not immediately after the show, but like once I found out they were doing a Smallville comic and they were going to introduce Batman in it, I was like, sold.
And it's also, like, it's really good.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
And just to confirm, it is John Murphy. Phil,
That's
you
what
were-
that's
yeah,
what
it's
I
John
figured.
Murphy.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, speaking of Superman in some form on the big screen, I guess we can move on to the next topic of the evening, the one in the thumbnail, and that is Zack Snyder's Justice League getting another theatrical release.
So I think there's still just too much unknown about this. So
Right.
we saw I think the one thing that was spreading that we knew was valid as far as this.
Got some tinfoil hat thoughts going on now. Okay.
Yep.
Go
yep.
ahead, Sean. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. So we know that, so there were, I think what I saw from yesterday where there were two primary images floating around. One that was fake, that kind of start was WB. Someone was making its rounds that WB was actually out there promoting this officially, and then the Vero post from Zach, which we know to be real. So once the first got debunked, then that stopped pretty quickly. But then the Vero one obviously is what caught fire with the fans, especially the Snyderverse fans. And I say Snyderverse fans in almost every shape and form, right? Whether it's sell it to Netflix, restore it, do
the
whatever.
broad sense.
Yeah,
the broad sense, right?
Yeah. Now I think there's still so much unknown about what exactly this is going to be, because for the most of the day, the speculation was, okay, this could just be one of those special events, 3 theaters. You'll have one in California, one in New York, and you may one somewhere else where it's a very limited showing. Kind of like what the event you went to Phil. Was it like
Full Circle?
Yeah, Full Circle. Thank you. Something very similar to that, where it's very limited. But once Fandigo went out there and made a post about it, then that kind of changed the conversation, where everyone was now thinking, oh, well, no, this is going to be a all-out full cinema release nationwide, just like any other movie would. Which then, as we know, then started prompting they're doing this to gauge the interest now, because this will give them the numbers that either HBO Max didn't give or wouldn't release, and this could then lead to maybe one more film for Zach to wrap it up if it garnered enough interest and enough support from fans in the theater. I say never, no, but I've also, and I will stand by, I've said on this show, I don't see it. I don't see, even if this was a wide release and it was popular, because I'll definitely go see it in the theater, because I would love to see it on the big screen. But I don't see a live action conclusion to the Snyderverse as like a Justice League 2 or 2 and 3 filming back to back with all these actors that played these roles coming back to fulfill that conclusion. I mean, we know, especially like Ben coming back to film what he did for the Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's pretty much,
and even
Zack
Flash,
calls
too.
Ben, and Ben's like, yeah, I'll be there. Let's do it. Wrap this up. I'm sure a lot of actors would do that for a lot of the directors that they've worked for. But with this, it feels like so much time has passed, and these actors have moved on. And I know Henry's been doing a lot of stuff. They're going to start filming Highlander in January, which he's starring in. I mean, Ben's going through a lot of his own personal stuff right now, right? So he may not even be in a good space. And he even said after he did The Flash, and he, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have swore he said that, oh, this was the best version I've done of Batman, and I am done. This is it for me. So I think even if Zach called him up and said, hey, let's do this, I think Ben would be like, nah, I'm good. I'm tapped out.
Before I give my thoughts, I want to hear Andy's take on what this could possibly be.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, don't again. If we can get a theatrical release, awesome. And I mean, I don't live in New York, sadly, or LA, so like if it's one of those like limited things, then we will see. But the thing that I kind of like when I saw Zach post it, I'm like, I felt this is gonna set up false hope again for again. Listen. I hate I have always have to be like like make this disclaimer. I'm a huge Snyderverse fan. Like I would love to see continue, at least get finished and get to wrap up. At this point, like I've accepted it's like not likely not going to happen. And
Not in a live action form.
not like I actually would love it if it came back as a comic or an animated show or something, just to kind of again because I do believe in the idea of letting him finish it. Like let him finish the story so we can all put a nice bow on it and just wrap up. I think that is the right thing to do. But when I see him post it like this, like of course everyone now thinks like like, oh, James Gunn's DC unit is in trouble, or oh no, this is this this going to be sold to Netflix. It's not going to get sold to Netflix. And, and like, here's the thing. I don't even think, I think if it gets to, have a theatrical release, it's going to be limited. Because right now, I don't see how this would financially make sense for Warner Brothers to do it. Again, like, this goes back to, even like 2 years ago with Comic-Con, Warner Brothers was in so much debt that they could literally only afford to bring 2 of their movies to Comic-Con to promote.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, I don't see why David Zaslav was suddenly be like, well, yeah, let's do it, while we're dealing with all this stuff. Like, I don't see him doing it. I think if anything, this will be something that will be through Zach and, like maybe something for Warner Bros., but like as like a, let's have fun with it, for a little bit. And that's it. I don't, like, because again, I've learned as myself as a Snyder fan at this point that not to get my hopes up when it comes to a continuation of the Snyderverse, or like whenever whenever we hears anything about this, like I just learned like, okay, it's just like I'm not gonna get too enthusiastic because, once we fought all those people that really messed up the Snyderverse and Warner Brothers were gone, we all thought, oh, well, this now means that we could, David Zaslav, he's gonna bring it back, but no, that's not what happened at all. So. But hey, if it gets to have a theatrical release in any shape or form, I'm all game for it.
Okay, I hear both of you, and I largely agree with everything both of you said. My take is this: I don't think it would be a wide, full-on, every theater release, and the only reason why I say that is purely because of the format the film is made in. It's an IMAX.
Yeah.
So to me, if it was going to get a wide release, it would be specifically for IMAX theaters. I think RJ even has a point here. And at best, I would love if they partner with Fathom Events or IMAX to do a limited run for a weekend or two. I honestly, that would be best case scenario, because immediately after seeing this movie in a IMAX format, the next best thing to happen for this film was to get it on a wide release in IMAX. Like that, to me, that was when I was still on Twitter. That was honestly the better hashtag to kind of try and promote was ZSJL and IMAX. Like release it in IMAX, because I do think that if you want to showcase this movie, you have to do it in which the format it was presented in. And I do think that, number one, if you do it with IMAX, that's a lot less theaters you have to work with. It's the format it was intended to be released in. You don't have to do too much, if any, promoting at all. So it's not really, scrubbing too much on Warner Brothers' back. Number two, Warner Brothers' highest movie this year, both the overall box office, is still Dune Part... Oh, wait, no, I almost said Dune Part 2. It's Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. But even then, they're splitting that with Legendary. So technically, you could... Well, even Dune, too. Like, both of those movies are still the highest grossing films WB has at the box office. I could see them looking at releasing the Snyder Cut in a wide form as more or less a cherry on top situation, as opposed to let's try and make money situation. You guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. And honestly, I 100% co-sign everything you guys said. I don't think anyone from this cast is not necessarily eager, but like they're past the point of no return. Ben Affleck is going through, from what I understand, divorce number 2. That's got to suck. Henry Cavill's about to be a dad. Gal Gadot has made her opinions in certain real world situations very well known, and she's under fire for that. Then you have, Ezra Miller and that whole situation with the Flash that happened last year. I'm sure people will probably not going to forget that. And yet Jason Momoa is like fucking done as Aquaman. He's like, I did my thing. We tried. Fucking okay, cool.
Let him be Lobo now.
Maybe we'll see what happens.
And we know Ray Fisher's not gonna, he's not.
Ray Fisher will not work with. Well, I don't know. Considering the hands have changed, I don't know that he'd work with James Gunn, but I feel like there's a branch that could be extended there. I don't know that for sure, but
yeah,
that's a tough one. Like honestly, to Andy's point, I feel like, and even Sean's point, all of the main 6 cast members who are part of the Justice League proper, they've all got other shit going on. They're fucking way past this. At best, the best you could probably guess for is if they do an animated continuation. That would be the best case, is getting them all back to voice their characters. And even then, we live in a world where there are many, many voice actors who could probably emulate all of their voices.
Well, and obviously that the core 6 would is what we go to, but then you have to think about what we saw at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, right? They brought Jared Leto back for that iteration of Joker, kind of a different take on what David Ayer did for Suicide Squad 2016. Then he had Deathstroke, then he had Mira, right? So you also have these other actors and actresses who were playing a part in that setup for what we had believed to be what would have been Justice League 2, like the whole nightmare, scenario. So even trying to bring them back I don't think would be feasible, to be honest.
I think to touch on that, I think my understanding of that sequence was being the mad genius that he is. He was like, okay, I am not going to be able to finish the overall story that I want to tell, but I want to put a bow on it in some form or another. And I also want to honor this universe and what I was trying to do with it. Who can I get who is available for this scene that I have that was meant to be essentially the ending of my part 2, but that still kind of treats it as like a, Lord of the Ringsy type of here's where shit was going to go as kind of dream. It was basically another nightmare for Bruce Wayne, which I thought was actually pretty ingenious.
Yeah.
And when you look at who was available, you have Amber Heard, you have Joe Manganiello, Jared Leto. When you go down the cast list, right? Like Ben Affleck, Ezra Miller, fucking Ray Fisher, they were all easily going to be like, yeah, we'll come back for this 5-minute scene. 100%. Amber Heard, same deal. Joe Manganiello was like, I never thought I was going to put on that fucking suit again. And I was presented the opportunity to, and I got to do it with a mohawk.
Yep.
It was a done deal for him. And then Jared Leto was like, I got kind of fucked out of Suicide Squad because of some studio fuckery. So let me showcase a little bit extra of what I tried to do with that in that scene. And honestly, I think that sequence was pretty fucking cool, all things considered, even if it does deviate from the initial fucking storyboard that he made. And he does have like 2 other boards that are like the finalized boards that he would do given the opportunity, and that's totally fine and gravy. I hope he gets to adapt that at some point in the future. Whether or not it actually happens, that remains to be seen, because as Andy pointed out, Warner Brothers is in debt and still
Warner Brothers is Warner Brothers.
Right. Warner Brothers is Warner Brothers. You can't guarantee anything anymore. But
for me, rather than, and again, this is just my opinion, is I would rather see Warner Brothers, DC, whoever we want to call them, put forth the effort to give David Ayer and his team the time to shine and put out his cut of what he had intended to release for Suicide Squad 2016. Give me the Ayer cut.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, rather than putting well, again, while I would love to see, be one of those individuals who saw Zack Snyder's Justice League on the big screen, right? If this is just a way to, I don't want to call it a cash grab, but in a way, in my head, I think, well, we're our next big DC Superman's not coming out. I mean, outside of like Joker and so I'm talking about DCU isn't for another year. Right. Well, let's put, we know this is a popular film. We know we'll get a large chunk of the fan base to go see it, and we know it will make money. So let's put it out there. My opinion is put all that effort behind what David was trying to do, and support what his vision was. I mean, you obviously gave Zach that opportunity, and you saw how successful it was with the fans, right? I mean,
It probably would be as expensive to do it with the air cut than as it would be with like producing Justice League 2 at this point. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think when David was talking about well over a year ago, I think the price tag was like 15 to 20 million to finish it outright the way he wanted to, with the additional visual effects and all that. And to me, that's a small price tag for something that the fans have been asking for quite some time. And to the point around Jared Leto, I mean, we know for a fact that the amount of content that was filmed of Jared Leto as a Joker, because I remember them coming out and saying that David had filmed so much, you could have pretty much almost made an entire Joker movie based on what was filmed. I mean, and if that's the case, then that tells me there's a lot that Jared had done with that character that we completely missed out on. And what we got was a watered down version of what the studio wanted to show.
Right. It was shaved. His performance was shaved down to I think not even 15 minutes of screen time overall.
Overall, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty small.
Yeah, I feel like the air cut could easily maybe get a 10-year anniversary release,
which would be next year. No, 2 years. Yeah, year after. Yeah,
2 years from now. But yeah, that to me would be the route to go down at this point. Even though David has said he's done. Like he doesn't.
He's done.
Which
is unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate because even he was. I want to say not directly, like he wasn't out there hashtagging it, but he saw the support he was getting, and he was appreciative of that support. Because he would like a lot of the people. I mean, a lot of the hardcore people that were out there pushing it, kind of like with the Zack Snyder the movement that was happening originally. He was very engaging. But to your point, I mean, I know he's recently come out and said, he's like, yeah, I totally got screwed over. This was a passion of mine, and it pretty much just got ripped away from me. And so he's kind of closed that book and just moved on. He's done some great work, have been since moved on. Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure though at some level as a creator, that sting is still there. And I'm sure at some level you still want to see that vision finished, right? To say, yeah, okay, it's 100% fully done.
As someone who's been fortunate enough to read script pages and see storyboards of what he wanted to do, I fully believe that his version of the movie would have been leaps and bounds a much better release, especially because considering from what I understand, they tested both of them. Like they tested the studio cut that they put out and his cut, and they both tested the exact same. And I was just like, if they tested the same, why not just fucking put his cut of the movie out there? Like, what?
Yep. Or even when they did the supposed director's or extended edition, not director's cut,
right?
Extended edition. At that point, that would have been your opportunity right there to give us the air cut.
And to me, like the biggest head scratcher is like Suicide Squad made money. Like Ayer's movie, the movie that they put out, it made money. So if you put an additional 10, 15, 20 million dollars into what he wanted to do, again, making that back and even like home sales or even streaming numbers on Max, I feel like that's not a big ask, honestly.
And didn't it win some awards for the makeup work?
It is an Academy Award winning, David Ayer's Academy Award winning Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah. I could have swore it won something for the makeup. Yeah.
And hey, props to David Ayer for playing Soldier and doing the reshoots. Yeah, and doing what was asked of him despite not wanting to. He's been pretty open about working under a corporate machine in terms of making these movies. And, I think that takes a lot of courage to be like, yeah, it's not the thing I wanted to make, but I did it anyway. Simon Kinberg was the same exact way about X-Men Dark Phoenix. And believe me, that guy is not one of my favorite writers, especially when it comes to X-Men. But when it came to Dark Phoenix, I was like, you know what? Fucking respect for taking it on the chin and be like, nope, I own this. This is my fault. In the sense of like, they did things to my movie that I had to go, all right, fine, whatever, I'll fucking do it.
Yeah.
Props. Because I know for a fact Bryan Singer probably wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Let's got a super chat.
We got another super chat from Dwayne Jackson.
I thought you were to say Snoopy chat.
No, and honestly, if James really finished Snyder's Justice League trilogy, James and Gunn would have worked together to finish it. But DC and Gunn doesn't want backlash. This trilogy is leaps and bounds better than whatever they put out. I'm gonna give you an explosion for that super chat once again. Thank you, Dwayne. We greatly appreciate it. If I can, man, I am not great at this, but forgive my slowness, everybody. I can understand James Gunn not wanting to go back to the past because of what he's trying to build for the future. Not necessarily out of spite, but purely because I think he should have his universe the chance to be given a chance in the way that Zack Snyder's universe was not given the chance. I guess that would be the best way I could say it, because essentially James Gunn is being allowed the carte blanche Snyder and co. were denied following Batman versus Superman.
So thanks, Dwayne, for the support. It's always appreciated. I think that what I would add to that, echo what you. Yeah, I don't think James wants to. I think James would stay clear of that. One, he wants to keep. He doesn't want to have the past overshadow what he's trying to build for the future. Because I think if he came in and tried to do that and finish that story, even if he did, let's just say he said, you know what, I will finish that. I'll work with Zach. I'll bring Zach in at a limited capacity, to have, whether it's a producer or, at least a sounding board to, make sure we do some things right. But at the end of the day, James would still want to put his stamp on that, because he's the one driving it forward. And the fans, I don't think, would even buy into it. They wouldn't want James involved in leading, taking any sort of creative aspects, development of Zach's story. They would solely want Zach to do it, because if it, for whatever reason, if they, let's just say, it didn't turn out the way we all think or believe it should have turned out, where are we gonna start pointing the finger? Oh, well, James was involved, Zach wasn't in full control, so it's not what we were expecting to get, or it's not what we would have gotten if Zach would have been in full control, right? So there's all those things to play, and then you have all that overshadowing now the DCU that James then trying to build, which would then be even harder to get off the ground if he had direct involvement in anything Snyderverse related. So I think and I don't think many of these directors would want to do that, especially in the comic book genre of movies. I think, to Phil's point, hey, he wants to put his own stamp in this world, and that's why he's pretty much like, okay, I'm done. Now, I think that for me differs from saying, hey, as co-head of this studio, like we just talked about the Ayer cut, I'll allow David Ayer to come back in, do his thing, finish his work, because it's him doing it, and we will release it, versus James saying, oh, well, I'll go in and finish David Ayer's movie for him and push it out, right? So
yeah, people will not dig that.
I think even just that notion is kind of a murky one, right? Because because DC Studios is now its own autonomous thing, right? And Ayer's Suicide Squad was developed solely under Warner Brothers Pictures.
Yep.
And through whatever other production companies had their hand in it. But does James Gunn have the power to even do that? Like, can he do that? Or is that something he'd have to go to Zaslav and be like, hey, there's a movie that came out fucking X amount of years ago. I made a soft sequel to it. Can we please give David the fucking same, that's the word I'm looking for here. Can we please give David the same opportunity that, the old 2 regimes ago fucking granted Zack Snyder?
Yeah.
Or rather, 1 regime, whatever. But even still, like, that's just it. Like, and if David Zaslav is the guy being like, if he's the one who has to make the final decision, he's probably looking at a spreadsheet with numbers on it and being like, no, I don't know. I genuinely do not know the answer to that question. That's just best guess based on how the company is currently operating today.
No, and that completely makes sense. I mean, every time these corporations get restructured, merge, restructure. And all these regime changes keep happening at the executive level. Yeah, I mean, who knows? All the decisions, everything that was made before who the decision makers are, it's obviously not going to be the same it is now. But to your point, if David is the final say in anything, everything that would be related, I mean, unless he's got his head in the sand, I mean,
that wouldn't be that would have been shocking.
It wouldn't be, but there's no way that this guy hasn't heard the pushback on the fans wanting to get the Ayer cut. I mean, just like we know he started hearing about the Snyder cut, right?
Yeah, he came in well after the Snyder cut was greenlit and released.
Yeah,
he's fully aware
of it,
right? So it's just a really murky, fucked up situation because, like, you'd also have to imagine someone, probably not even Zaslav, some suit is probably going, we already made our money on Suicide Squad. What more is there? And it's probably, it could be something to that effect too. Just someone being kind of petty and being like, we already did it. We don't need to do it again. It's like, well,
as William, points out here in the chat, he would have to go to Zaslav, which absolutely. And then he also mentions that that's an executive decision, not one you leave up to an employee. Absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah.
I can't really disagree with that, but it's like, it's as a fan, it's like, you see the murkiness of, like, the studio that claimed at the time, director driven studio. And then they allow one director to finish their vision and they don't do the same thing for another one. And even then the other one, it's for a far cheaper price tag. And it's like, come on guys, this is not like, from a visual and from a fan standpoint, that's not fair. But then you factor in the business of it all. And it's like, that's still fucked up.
Yeah,
it's still pretty fucked up, especially since the movie you guys put out made fucking money anyway. This should have been a fucking no-brainer. Like, you guys should have just let Ayer finish his film a long time ago, and you wouldn't have this pushback to begin with.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, even though I know we didn't get what we expected to get, I'm still a fan of the 2016 film. I think it's one of my favorite films. So
I think there are a few sequences in it that that make me kind of cringe a little bit, but that's neither here nor there.
Which is fair,
right? It is what it is. But yeah, I'm actually of the opinion that I think that version of Suicide Squad is actually far more faithful to the overall concept of the Suicide Squad that James Gunn's movie was. But
I agree.
That's a whole different conversation. That is a
yeah. And my final comment on that would be is I've watched Gunn's his take on it once, and I have never revisited it again. Now, David's I revisit multiple times because I like that tone. I mean, at least the tone we got. I know that's not the exact tone he would have given us in his version, but at least with what I got, I have an idea of what he was going for to a degree. And his iteration of those characters, I far enjoy more than what I saw in James Gunn's version.
I have seen Gunn's version of the film, or rather, I've seen Gunn's movie a total of 3 times. And Andy and I have talked about this. Like, we're pretty much in lockstep in our feelings in regards to that film and certain scenes that transpire in it that just don't sit well with either one of us. But it's like a night and day situation. And I've said this before. Like, I look at the 2016 movie and then I look at the 2021 movie and then I look at my bookshelf and I look at John Ostrander's Suicide Squad and then I look at both movies and I just point to the 2016 one and I go, that one got it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I
agreed. For me, like, and the thing that is always funny to me when people talk about, like, James Gunn's Suicide versus David Ayer's Suicide Squad is the fact that David Ayer's, with all the changes that he had and so on, it made money. James Gunn's didn't, but he still got rewarded. The keys to the castle, which again, I'm still excited to see his DC universe, but I'm kind of thinking, like, wow, what a way to, like, technically fail upwards. Like, Suicide, again, it's not his fault. The pandemic was a thing,
right?
And so I totally get that. But for me, I'm kind of just like, I wish people had more respect for what David Ayer did in 2016, even with the changes he had to make.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It's can you believe how much drama this franchise has gone through over just 10 years? When I'm just like, I just like want to go back to the days when, like, okay, we're just gonna have Man of Steel. It was so easy.
And by franchise, I think deliberately speaking towards DC movies on the whole, right? Like
TV's been doing well.
Like post Dark Knight Rises, like the movie side of things for DC has always just been a contentious point of conversation, going all the way back to my favorite Superman movie, and that's Man of Steel. Like, I can't begin to tell you when I walked out of that theater for the like second or third time, just I had the biggest smile on my face because I was like, that's the fucking Superman I've been waiting to see my whole life. Like that's a really great Superman movie. And then you get online, you see a bunch of fanboys just, oh, you shouldn't have snapped Zod's neck. That was bullshit. Superman wouldn't do that. It's like,
that's not classic Superman.
Although in Superman 2, he like throws him down like this pit that you can't. I mean, it's not like there's like an inflatable like padding down there to catch him. I mean, come on. So. Yeah. So I mean, my last comment on this, I guess maybe on this topic, is I think the DCU could have been successful had they have just kept if executives would have just kept the trust in the creators, let them create, and stop worrying about what Marvel was doing. They were so hell bent on what Marvel was doing, how they were doing it, and it was like then as a fan, you see this and you're like, well, all you're doing is chasing Marvel, and then you're trying to take and tell your creators like David or Zach or whoever to say, you know what, no, we need you to take whatever you had and make it like that, whether it was Iron Man, whether it was Thor or whatever. And that wasn't that's not the tone of DC. It's just not the tone.
Right.
It's never been the tone. And now that we're in an age, or we were in an age where live action was coming up into its own when it comes to these characters, and we were seeing a lot of these characters really for the outside. Again, I don't really count what was happening in the 70s and the 80s when it came to some of those live action, Avengers, we got that Avengers film back then. I mean, I'm excluding those. Those are just off to the side. I'm treating these ones as the first iterations, and
there's our Flashpoint timeline now.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, had DC had they just allowed them to have trust in the process and let it play out, I think it would have been successful. But they got scared when they saw one or two Marvel films and they saw the success of them and said, we have to do a course correction. And then when another Marvel film came out, we got to do another course correction. And then now you have fans that are just now so frustrated by and now the creators are frustrated, the actors and actresses are frustrated. And now this is what we have. We have what we have today after 10, 12 years now. Everyone's frustrated. And you keep trying to do soft reboot, full reboot. We're not going to have multiple Supermen, so we're going to cancel this TV show that's being successful, right? I mean,
cherry pick reboot.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, the fans are just going to be like, I'm tapped out. I'm done. I'm going to go watch some soap operas, right? I'm going to go watch Telemundo. Is what I'm going to go watch.
Yeah, I will. What a joke! I thought it was like, oh, I'm just gonna stick to Marvel. But you went like, nah, fuck Marvel. We're gonna go Marvel.
We're going to Spanish TV.
So, that was fun. Yeah.
Let me answer this real quick. Question to Phil: what are your thoughts on the Crisis Part 3 trailer and the Watchmen trailer? I know we probably talked about it on a previous episode, but just to give my thoughts here, I will say that the Watchmen trailer. I talked to Andy about this. I think. Off air. I think the Watchmen trailer reminds me a lot of Marvel's What If. I don't say that as a bad thing, but I do think that sometimes 3D animation is going to land and sometimes it's not. And considering I've now seen this story twice, both in comic book form and in live action film form, I understand the notion of wanting to bring it to a new generational audience. I get that. But at the same time, I personally would have preferred a 2D animation hand-drawn style as opposed to what they're doing with it. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch both parts. And it has my intrigue. I'm pretty sure I know where they're going to cut it in half because it's a 2-part story and there's 12 chapters. So it's pretty easy to figure out where they're going to do it. But then again, same thing happened with Batman The Long Halloween. They cut it right off at month 4 of 12. So anything's possible. As far as Crisis Part 3, well, Crisis Part 2, that was a watch.
Yeah,
that was a watch. I had high hopes for Batman Beyond, and well,
Yeah,
those
like one
hopes.
line. He has like one line, right?
He's got like a handful of lines, if that. He's got less than a handful of lines. Like, don't get me wrong, it was cool to see Wilfred L reprise the role, but it's like for not even 5 minutes. So I'm a little hesitant on part 3 because part 2 was a very mixed setup film for part 3, and I don't know that I'm cautiously optimistic or optimistic at all. I'm just very like cautiously curious would be the best way to say that personally. I don't know that I like what they did with Anti-Monitor. Personally, I'm actually a fan of the big blue Hulkin universe killing machine thing that it is, not this black shadow entity that they're going for. I'm just like, fuck, okay, fine, whatever. Part 1 was better than part 2.
Yeah, part 1 is still like, I think part 1 honestly will be the best one because again, it's like we're saying goodbye to a universe that we just kind of just started with.
Yep.
So you know what can we do? Like I mean, it's like I don't feel as sad about I'm disappointed we are having to lose it so quickly, but then also like, but what? Okay, so what is the next step for animation in DC? Like, you know, because I don't feel like we're gonna have like shared anime universe. I feel like it's gonna be more independent stories now, and
yeah,
and again, that's like that's why I'm like, okay, I don't want to see Crisis or Flashpoint be adapted ever again for a very, very, very long time. Because I'm like, you know, TV did it, you know, great. Crisis was great on television, and you know, I don't really want to see it anytime soon in James Gunn's DC universe. So that's what's up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I think part 1's probably going to wind up being the most coherent one, and honestly, that's largely in part due to the fact that it's a Flash centric story. You know, and they did a really good job of showcasing, you know, Barry and Iris's relationship. The only problem is like to Andy's point, they really rushed a universe and now they're just kind of ending it without too much meat on the bone. And it's just kind of jarring because there's a lot of stuff that happened off screen that you just kind of have to piece together if you're a longtime DC fan. Like, for instance, the assembly of the Justice League happens in Crisis Part 1. And it's like, you guys literally had a movie called Justice League War World. You could have assembled them there, and that didn't happen. So it's tough. But you know, of the two, I guess maybe I'm probably more excited for Watchmen, just to see, you know, what they do with it, where it lands, where part 1 ends, and who voices who. So yeah. I guess that's my final comment on that personally. What about you guys?
I would agree. I would echo exactly what you just said. Yeah. So I don't know if Andy has anything he wants to add.
I wasn't really impressed by the Watchmen trailers, so I'm like, for me, I'm like, okay. Like, again, I love What If, but I don't know if I need to see it for Watchmen. But also, I feel like we don't need it. I don't feel I feel we don't need another Watchmen adaptation. I feel Zach's movie was awesome. The TV show was also awesome. Why are we doing this?
Right.
I mean, I'll say if we were going to get more, I wish we would have gotten another season of the TV show.
That's honestly what I would have preferred, and that's why I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I can agree with that, but the only thing I would wonder is, what would you do with a second season to that show? Because the only thing that really kind of comes to mind is showcasing Regina King as like the next Dr. Manhattan. That's definitely one thread I would like to see. The only other thread I could honestly think of too is Lady True cloning her own mother, and where does that pick up after season 1 ends? Because that's one character who's just kind of there at the end being like, what the fuck do I do now? Because everything else was kind of tightly wrapped up, more or less.
Yeah, I would agree. But I mean, if we just looked at those two avenues as the options, right, and we went down those two paths, that at least that's something fresh and new versus giving me an animated version of what I've already seen.
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
So I mean, and to your guys' point, you know, I've gotten the graphic novel, I've gotten the individual comic books, right, over the years, and we got the live action, you know, years ago. Why am I seeing the same story being told again now in animated? If you expand it like you just explained off of season 1 into season 2 to expand out those characters a bit more, I think you'd have an audience more interested in coming back to this IP.
I also think that, correct me if I'm wrong, this is also technically the second time it's been animated because it was done in stop motion.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you consider that, yeah, then this would be the second. Yeah.
So
yeah, that even begs the question even more. Why?
I kind of have to side with Andy on this one. I was just like, do we really need it? No. But, you know, they're probably trying to integrate, you know, a new generation of fans. At that point, it's like, but then show them the fucking movie. Show them the comic. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, because the comics and the graphic novel, I mean, those are timeless. I mean, those have carried over generations and are still phenomenal.
Right.
So
I don't know. Speaking of television,
The Boys.
So are you, just curious, Sean, are you and Andre going to do your midnight
we
talking
are
on this tonight?
Yep. So tonight, the watch party should start around 11:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we'll do a quick 15-minute just recap of what happened in episode 5. Some quick predictions of what we think will happen in episode 6, which then drops at midnight Pacific Standard Time. Obviously, if you're East Coast, that's what, like 3 a.m. So I know most East Coast people won't stay up. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if they are around, they'll typically catch probably our stream, because we start off on YouTube, then we'll jump to Twitter or X for the actual show, because YouTube won't allow us to show the full episode. And then once we're done, we'll come back to YouTube, and I think he stays on X as well, where we'll do a quick recap and then brief predictions on the next episode. But yeah, we are set for that tonight.
Okay, I am caught up. Obviously, I am writing reviews for this for Multiverse of Color. Shameless plug.
Nice.
And
I'm no shame in that. I'm at attention where I will happily hear my name, my products be mentioned. So.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you again for the opportunity to allow me to write reviews for this.
Okay. You don't have to kiss my butt anymore. It's fine. You passed the trial. It's fine. Like now you can be like, oh fuck this bitch. Now you can start go at it.
Not at all. But no, when it comes to this show, I messaged Andy immediately after watching the last episode, and I was like, Old MacDonald had a farm.
He did. He really did.
I wasn't expecting that at all. And it was just the funniest way to end that episode, because hot damn, that Super Pets farm was fucking creepy. Ooh.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea when they ended up on a farm. I was like, okay, they got. I mean, and this is The Boys. We're coming towards the end of the season. We got one season left. I can't imagine they're not going to somehow fit farm animals in here somewhere, and they
showed off the flying sheep in one of the trailers. That much I do remember.
Okay,
and then when it happened in the episode, I was like, oh, it's this episode. Okay,
yeah,
I was just like, oh fuck, those sheep are bloody and lethal.
Yeah, those sheep were pretty. I think that's probably why they decided just to stay in the barn for as long as they could, until they realized they had one last bit of that virus left to try and save them. But
okay.
Yeah, the episode didn't disappoint. For me, it didn't disappoint. That's for sure. And then we got to see Stan Edgar come back, so that was interesting.
True, Giancarlo Esposito is a phenomenal actor in his own
Absolutely,
right. But the thing that kind of made me chuckle a little bit was the bulletproof chicken, because I had massive. I had some massive flashbacks to Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, where if you fucking hit the chicken, it would send an army of them after you.
So I'm glad your callback reference was a video game, not you're going to tell us a story about something that actually happened to you with a chicken and someone shooting.
No, I did. Okay, so I wasn't, as a child, I was not chased by a chicken, but I was in fact chased by a goose.
Okay. Well, yeah, not exactly a chicken, but yeah, very traumatizing all the same.
Very much so. I can still hear that fucking honking to this day. I was 8 years old. It was very traumatizing.
Someone clip that. Someone clip that.
If anyone wants to clip that, by all means, I'll pay you $5. Just kidding. I won't pay you $5.
So one of the things that we talked about though last week, so I had a prediction before the episode, and after the episode, I typically go back and watch it again a few days later just to kind of pick up on things I didn't catch. So my prediction before episode 5 was around Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character.
And, Kessler. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe Kessler is who he plays. And up to that point, my prediction was up to that point, we had only ever seen Butcher interact with him. We've never
Mhm.
seen him interact with anybody else, or no one else has ever acknowledged him in the few episodes, few scenes he showed up in. So my prediction was that we knew from the first few minutes of episode 1 that Butcher was hallucinating, which because he was talking to somebody in the very first few minutes of that episode, which then we come to find out he is hallucinating. He's seeing his wife. So my prediction was, is he also hallucinating Kessler? Is he the only one seeing Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Now, at the end of this episode 5, when we find that Butcher kidnapped the scientist, cut off his
Samir.
leg.
Yeah,
Yes, Samir cut off his leg, and they're both standing there. And it's Samir for a brief moment when Butcher says, we need you to make more of this virus. And you see Samir just very quickly, very briefly kind of look to his side as if, who's we? Like, he has that look on his face of, who is this we that we're talking about? Because all I see is you. Now, I thought, well, okay, this could actually be something that pans out. Maybe he's also hallucinating this character as well, because this is the same character that told him to try and kill Ryan as well with the cookies. And then he changed his mind. Only to come to find out that so I went back looking, unless it's just they've changed the character for the show, because Kessler actually is a real person. It's a real character. He eventually becomes the CIA director, but Butcher ends up eventually he tried to blackmail Butcher, and he eventually gets sodomized.
Is this in the comic?
Yeah. So again, unless they've changed it for the show, that prediction kind of goes out the window, because thus far that prediction holds true, that he's the only one seeing him and he's a hallucination. So I'm kind of hoping they kind of took a different approach with the show, because it would make sense. He has his wife telling him to save Ryan. You have Kessler, Jeffrey Morgan, telling him kill Ryan. Right. And now we've seen where the Ryan character has gone, with Homelander kind of manipulating him and kind of getting him to be a little more devious.
I gotta say, like that the way he manipulated Ryan at the end of the episode, like towards the end of the episode, by being like, I don't want what happened to me happen to you. I want you to make your own decisions. How do you feel about this guy harassing this one? And he totally just kind of puts Ryan on the spot to be like, go ahead, make your own decision. I'm here. He'll do whatever you tell him to do because I'm here. Like he's kind of forcing his hand a little bit, but he's also kind of taking the opportunity to nudge Ryan in a direction of being like, yeah, you want to save people. That's fine, but you're going to do it just like me. And it's fucking diabolical is what it is. It is super fucking diabolical.
Well, yeah, because you notice Ryan hesitates at first. He's like, I don't know about this, because he even hesitated when they were in the office, and Ryan didn't want to do was it the movie or the TV show?
The fake save or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And Ryan didn't want to do it, and that's where it kind of started, where Homelander sees, okay, I'm gonna have to manipulate him a very different way. And then that's what he eventually does. And then when you see Ryan, and when you see it happening, and you see Ryan, you almost see him turning. Like his moral compass is turning, because then he starts to smile about it. Like, yeah, I can make this person do whatever I want them to do, all while he's drinking a milkshake like Homelander, which is a little bit creepy there too, where you can tell he's starting to take on more of the persona of Homelander.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the episode tonight. Definitely looking forward to see where it goes.
Meanwhile, Andy's just staying quiet because he can't say a fucking word about the episode.
Yeah.
I can say there's new episodes dropping for the next 3 weeks on Prime Video.
I am thankful this wraps up before I go to Comic-Con.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah,
because man, I would have been. I'm gonna be. So this and Acolyte wrap up before I go to Comic-Con, which I'm thankful for. However, I think House of the Dragon is going to be the tough one for me to watch,
because that goes into August, like mid-August.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the boys would have gone at pretty much the same timeline had they not have dropped the first 3 episodes week 1. Right. It would have been pretty much like a few days. It would have ended a few days before House of the Dragon would have ended.
Right. Yeah. So I'm thankful. I can't wait to watch it here in probably 6 hours if I stay up that late, which I very well might. We'll see what happens. I don't work tomorrow, so I probably just might stay up and watch it. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I don't think there's ever been a bad season, let alone a bad episode of The Boys. It's honestly one of those few shows in my purview that I consider close to perfect in that circle is Breaking Bad and Breaking Bad and The Boys.
What
But
about Call Saul or
I like Better Call Saul, but
Better Call Saul, thank you.
It's a little more flawed than Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, Breaking Bad. I think it was definitely one of those like we've said before in certain things, like it was like lightning in a bottle, right? It came out at the perfect time. It was well executed, well written, right? It's definitely one of those that you really can't. I mean, you really can't find a whole lot to say, man. Yeah, this isn't good.
I honestly also feel comfortable throwing Mandalorian in that conversation too.
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm one of the supporters of season 3, despite the flaws. Because look, season 1 and season 2 are fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love the Mandalorian and what that accomplished and what it aimed to do. And I am a huge Mandalorian fan by nature, not just like Din Djarin, but just Mandalorian culture in general. And seeing season 3 have a heavier emphasis on the Mandalorian culture, I was all for it. I was fucking super stoked. So when I saw people online doing the boohoo wham wham shit with it, I was just like, man, fuck you.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around with Star Wars lately.
That my friend is a fabulous segue. Perfect segue. Oh my god.
So Phil, I'm gonna this is your time to shine, my friend. The Double Mint twins aren't here to rain on your parade, so I'm gonna give you the floor, my friend. It is all you.
Okay. Well, I might reiterate a couple things I wrote in my review. Again, check it out, multiversecolor.com. But I found this episode very exposition heavy. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because given the last episode was very action heavy, I feel like everyone, the audience, needed kind of a come down from the carnage they just witnessed by witnessing Quimir just strike down every fucking Jedi except for Soul, because that was pure unadulterated Jedi Sith insanity, and I love that. As far as this episode is concerned, when I was watching it, because I watched it and then I started writing my review. I took a nap, woke back up at like midnight, and I siphoned through the episode again to finish my review in parts and chunks. And I even took notes this time too. But for me, maybe I'm just being a little too heavy-handed in terms of being a Star Wars fan, but a lot of stuff I noticed was just very parallel in terms of, like, you've got two sides of the same Force coin here showcasing how they operate. You've got Master Soul talking to May, and he's fucking blinded by, number one, his guilt from what just happened. So he's not even aware of the fact that it's May, not Osha, until they start having a serious conversation, and he fucking notices, wait a minute, you're not talking to your droid. You're asking me questions about Brendock. You're not fucking Osha. You're May, right?
Yeah.
But then you've got the juxtaposition of Quimir and Osha on that planet, which is not Acto, by the way. I wrote that in my review that I thought it might be Acto. I am wrong. It is not the case. Leslie Headland actually confirmed that today in an EW interview. I don't know if that was... it was probably... The interview was probably done weeks ago, but it was published today that island that they are on is one that is of cortosis minerals, which is the same mineral used to forge his helmet, which his helmet has gauntlet apparently, like cortosis as a metal in Star Wars, apparently, and I'm just now finding this out just after weeks of research, that's the reason why he was able to short out their lightsabers, was because of the cortosis metal. And I was like, that's fucking sick. That's smart.
I think Dawson mentioned that last week.
He might have.
I think he might. I think he was. I think he was, because I think that that had just come up as well. Because I know we had talked about that during the fight. Like, why all of a sudden are their sabers shorting out? And I think not Ryan, but Dawson was trying to bring up that point as well.
Yeah, Ryan wouldn't have known, but
yes,
he definitely would have known that, but. That to me was, I didn't even notice there was cortosis in the, like, up on the wall until they show a brief shot of it when Osha's looking up at it, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. But the funny thing is like Leslie Headland did mention that it was intentional that they showed an island that was similar to Octo, but it was deliberately used to mine cortosis. And also Quimir's basically the whole episode, you know, you have the juxtaposition of like Soul being like, you know, we obviously saw how he handled finding out May was May and not OSHA, and he fucking has her handcuffed, and he's like, I'm gonna tell you the truth now. And I'm sure everyone's still bitching of like, when are we gonna get the truth? When are we gonna get the truth? And I'm just like, you know, can we just let the fucking season play out before we start jumping to conclusions here? But on the other side of things, you got Quimir, who's basically letting OSHA every step of the way being like, you want to leave? Ship's right there.
Yeah.
You want to know why I did what I did? Well, because the Jedi are fucked up, you know? Like, it's just, you know, he makes his points very clear and honestly, and I actually appreciated that. He even tells OSHA straight up, you know, like, why do you love people who would not go as far for you? And that kind of hits home when you really think about how the Jedi are so detached from emotional commitment, and he's not wrong. And the funny thing is I think a lot of Star Wars fans just really like cling into this idea, oh, the Jedi are all good, the Sith are all bad. It's like, oh, no. It's so much more complicated than that. That is such a surface level way of looking at the two factions, because there is far more meat on those bones than people like to assume.
Yeah. So just so if you want to pull it up real quick, we got Zebra Comics in the comments.
I would have known, and the show still sucks. That's great, dude, but you didn't know.
But no, just so much the hashtag.
Yeah, the hashtag. Yeah.
We're gonna get that. We're gonna get that trending for the two of them.
Maybe. Yeah.
So I agree with you. The episode definitely was a
real quick. The one moment where I was like, okay, that was forced, was when it was very obvious that Basil like steps on her foot, like when OSHA's in the ship, and then she gets fucking oil sprayed in her face. I was like, if there's one thing that isn't working for me in this show, it just might be the humor, because I feel like some of it is all over the place, awkward, and kind of just, it doesn't land half the time.
Almost like misplaced.
Almost, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. And I think to me, that also kind of ties back to some of the complaints, or many of the complaints when it comes to the writing, right? I mean, have those things been placed better or done a little bit better, obviously it would have helped. But I do agree the episode, and so let me start off by prefacing with this. I have made no secrets about, I'm strictly writing this show out now because I'm interested just to see how it's going to play out and end.
Sure.
I haven't been a 100% full support. Love the show. I like the show. I mean, I've said in previous episodes here and on other shows that we've done, is I'm still not seeing what many other people are seeing when those other individuals are saying it's great. It's a great Star Wars show for a first season. And again, I come back to, if you like it, you love it, hey, I'm happy for you that you're enjoying it. And I'm not going to disparage you with whether it's my opinion or tell you that you're wrong or what have you, right? Because like you and me, Phil, you've enjoyed the show thus far, right? I mean, I have obviously I've had a different experience with the show.
I think to your point, the enjoyment level depends on what kind of Star Wars are you into, right?
Absolutely. 100% agree with you.
And I think that varies from Star Wars fan to Star Wars fan. And I mean, for me personally, considering there's such a heavy emphasis on Sith background with this, that's probably why I'm more intrigued by it than most. Because a lot of people, and I'm not saying you, but a lot of people are really just looking at this as another Star Wars television show. Oh, the writing sucks. It's clunky. It's bad. It's boring. Oh, I don't give a shit about these characters. Oh, the acting is terrible. Oh, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, you, again, not pointing finger at you, not pointing a finger at anyone else who's been on the show, but like a lot of people just, they clamor and cry for more new Star Wars stuff, and then they're presented with it and they fucking hate it for no logical reason.
Well, to go right back to that point you just made, that last comment you just made, I think I said that like 3 weeks ago here, where maybe it was after episode 2 when we did the show after episode 2. We've been hearing for years where you have a large part of the fan base who has said, give me something besides the Skywalker story. I want something more than Skywalker story. then the studio says, okay, you want something else besides Skywalker. We give you something else besides Skywalker and you hate it. And then you ask for a Skywalker story or something more expanded on that piece of the universe, right? So I'm okay with not having everything Star Wars related around, circling or orbiting around the Skywalker, family, so to speak, right?
Right.
I mean, there are certain aspects of I would have liked to have seen, which I think we all would have at some point, kind of like what happens between like the gaps of the movies, right? In more live action. I think we all would have liked to have seen more of Vader's rise to power, but especially what happens between episode 3, from the prequel sequel series, and 4. I mean, yeah, we've seen some of that in animation, right? But I mean, to see live action, to see some of those stories play out, or even some of the novels that are written out there that cover in more depth of Vader, how brutal Vader is and was, right? Yes, that's Skywalker related. I get that. But if I was going to stick with Skywalker, for me personally, that's what I would want to have seen. I'm okay with, again, not Star Wars not having to orbit around this family. And I'm interested in seeing those. That's why, like this show, I was like, okay, I'll give the show a chance. We'll see how this plays out. And while I will say it's not something I will revisit when it's over, I'm still already vested in it to say, okay, I want to see how it's going to end. So I'm definitely giving it the benefit. I feel like I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt to say, you know what, 3 episodes in, screw it, I'm not going to finish it out. No, I'm going to continue to watch it because it's episode by episode. I'm not going to allow other people's opinions to sway me, right? I want to be able to go into this and say, yeah, I watched it, I didn't like it, move on. And I did the same thing with Peacemaker, right? A lot of people did not even want to, because whether it was John Cena, James Gunn, or they just kind of saw some of the previews or kind of like the humor that was used for it. Granted, it's not my style of humor, but in order to form my opinion on, conversations like this, I need to be able to say, yeah, I watched it end to end, and this is why I either didn't like it or why I do like it, so on and so forth. So as it comes to this episode, to your point, it definitely felt like it was a brain down, right, from the last episode. Rightfully so. It kind of needed to have that kind of like that moment of calmness, so to speak.
Right.
I think the one thing that stood out that we all predicted, was the whole lightsaber whip, which I was waiting for it, but when I saw it, I was like, really? That's what we're clamoring about, right? I mean, we know the character is who we probably believe the character is going to turn out to be in the last 3 episodes. I mean, the show has been very predictable. That's one thing I feel it has been, as far as who's on what side, how is this going to turn out. So I don't think they've done a very good job on that front personally. Like, they didn't keep much mystery,
that's fair,
so to speak. But again, I mean, like I said, I'll let it play out. 3 episodes left and we'll just see what happens, right? So
yeah, I think when it comes to the Acolyte, if I was to be heavily critical, I do feel like, and this isn't just specific to the Acolyte, it's kind of across the board for Disney Plus as a whole. I feel like their whole model of making some episodes longer than others is actually kind of detrimental, because 2 completely unrelated shows, but the fact of the matter, if you've got like something like The Boys or House of the Dragon, where you have like fucking hour-long episodes and you really give, you focus on certain characters, you give, certain characters time to shine and progress in some fashion or another. Like, case in point, episode 3, we see fucking Daemon Targaryen and House of Dragon like go to Harrenhal. He's like, I'm going to take Harrenhal, and he doesn't even have to try. But he's presented with a fucking nightmare vision of young Rhaenyra Targaryen, spoilers, played by Amelia Alcock, and she's sewing the head of Jaehaerys back on the fucking body. And he literally he's faced with his own inner demon, and he's like, wow, I really fucked up. You could see it in his face. And then he turns around and he's told, you will die here at Harrenhal.
Yep, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yep.
And I feel like when you apply something like that to the Acolyte, I saw a lot of people complain, or not really complain, but like hope that, episodes 4 and 5 actually should have maybe been smacked together as 1 hour episode, 1 hour long episode. And I can totally understand that. because the way the episode ends on such a fucking massive cliffhanger, and where it begins in the 5th episode and it's just nonstop action, you almost feel like, if you look at it from like maybe a movie standpoint, that's the almost climactic battle of the film, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
One of the big action set pieces where you have evil Force user just completely wipe out like 90% of the good Force users, using those terms loosely here, because obviously that's another thing about the show, is they're really trying to showcase that neither side is truly good nor truly evil.
Yeah.
Like, they have their reasons for going down the path that they go down. Obviously, it's pretty clear to me, and I think we're going to find out in the next 2 episodes. These High Republic Jedi are not as squeaky clean as they've clamored to be. And Quimir, for whatever reason, is just like, nope, I ain't fucking following that. They think their way is the only way. This is like math. There is more than one way to achieve attunement with the Force.
Yeah.
And it's through anger, it's through pain, it's through suffering. And that in and of itself is like, holy shit, that's actually kind of incredible, where people are like, you know what? You have taken everything from me, and I'm going to turn that into a power to use against you. Is that the right way to approach? Probably not, but still, it's understandable. And honestly, I look at May and Osha, and I see parallels of Anakin Skywalker between the both of them. Because they were, obviously, the twins were forged and, conceptualized literally in the same way that Anakin was, and literally you see both of them going through similar things that Anakin went through. Like, it's almost abundantly clear that Osha is kind of going down a Darth Vader route, and May is kind of going down a Darth Vader becoming Anakin again route. It's insane, but I actually kind of like it. I actually really like that the episode ended with her putting on the helmet.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Very reminiscent of Anakin putting on the helmet at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Now, so while you say that, do you find that it's very unoriginal though? Like, we've seen, like, meaning that we've, as you just point out, we've seen that, at the end of episode of the films, episode 3, where Anakin, they're fixing him up, putting the suit on him, and we see the mask come on, we hear the breathing, and then we pretty much get something very similar here, where she's just putting it on, and then everything's dead silent. Then you hear her breathing. Now, do you think that, okay, we've seen this before already, and many people have made that comparison, say, yeah, this is exactly what Vader did. We've seen this before. This is not original. Why couldn't we have done something different and more original for the show, for this character?
I think my ultimate answer to that is what George Lucas has said for years. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like, I don't look at it as like, we've seen this before. I see it more as, parallel. I see what they're doing, and I like it because we have different characters going through something similar. A lot of people tend to cling on this idea that, Anakin was the chosen one. The chosen one prophecy, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just like, that's just a thing in context inside the films. That's not some heralded pedestal piece of canon that needs to be upheld every step of the way. Honestly, it's almost looking at Star Wars like, this thing can't change. It can't be touched. It can't be utilized ever again. It's like, you're basically acting like a child saying, no, these are my toys. And that's kind of fucked up, if I'm being brutally honest. And I'm not speaking this to you, because you're not.
No, I know that.
But it's just one of those things where, when I see people, come to that conclusion, or they criticize it in that way, I'm just like, you guys wanted something different from that thing. This is that in a different way, and you're still mad. So I kind of just throw my hands up in the air, and I don't try and let the fandom menace, get to me at all, because frankly, I'm not a fan of the hate bait. I take the show for what it is. It is another chapter in the Star Wars tapestry. And you can make the debate that the Star Wars franchise as a whole is, it's, I wouldn't say convoluted, but there's a lot. But I think the thing that Star Wars has that Marvel does not have is there's no straight timeline. There's no straight canon from from comics or whatever that they have to follow, right? There's no everything that's supplemental inside Legends in EU is completely open season for people to come in and be like, oh, I want to use this, I want to use that. Whether or not that lands with fans and general audiences, that's entirely up to interpretation. The thing that I think gets, hardcore fans, i.e. the Phantom Menace and Tizzy Fits, is like, they bitch and moan about how Legends canon isn't canon anymore, but when Star Wars uses stuff from Legends, they bitch even more. I'm just like, there's really no winning. So when I see stuff utilized, like the Cortosis helmet, when I learned about that, I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. I had no idea that was a Legends thing. Or even like the Jedi Whip. I actually just saw that Vernestra's Jedi Whip was something that happened in a Legends book in like 1985, and they're just now utilizing it now. And I'm like, oh, cool. I just look at stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that's fucking neat.
Yeah.
Like I'm not hardcore into like Star Wars Legends stuff. Like I'm more recent. Like my familiarity with it really does just boil down to like what is visually, be it TV or film. Like that to me is what is true canon. Anything else is entirely supplemental or up to interpretation.
Yeah, and I think if some of those things, and maybe some of those things like the saber whip, so to speak. I mean, you're mentioning something that came up in the 80s, and here it is now 2024. It's really never been seen out, live action or really outside of that. Now, I wonder, would the reception of a lot of these things be better had we had seen them before in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, for example, like you just mentioned, you primarily look at whether it's the live action, TV shows or films. Had we have seen that, something like that in one of the films, especially like one of the prequel sequels, would it be such a big deal now? Probably not, because we've seen it. We've seen some iteration of it before.
Right.
I think from what I've seen, and again, it just feels very much like, and I'm not trying, and I'm only using this as a comparison. I'm not using this to deviate our conversation back to this topic, but this show feels like like a lot of Star Wars stuff does, where you have the Gunn versus the Snyders, like, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Or like the Hatfield versus the McCoys, right? It's like either you have to love the show, or you have to hate the show, or you have to hate whatever this movie is or whatever. Especially when it comes to Star Wars, you can't necessarily pick a middle ground to say, oh well, I think it's okay. It's not the greatest, it's not my favorite, but it's okay, and I'll still watch just to see what happens, similar to what I'm doing, because I feel like I fall kind of in that middle ground where, again, I don't think it's absolute trash. I mean, are there some aspects of it, like we've talked about here before, that don't make sense to me? Absolutely. I think some of the writing to me could be done better. I think some of the humor, which we've already talked about, can be done better, right? I mean, there's various things I could literally nitpick apart, but that's not for me to nitpick apart, right? If it's getting to me that much, then why am I even giving it the time of day, right? So, and then there again, it falls back on, hey, if you are watching this and you're really enjoying it, hey, that's awesome. Conquer, right? It's not for me, but yeah, I can at least say, yeah, I gave it a try. Here's my opinion. And I'll move on. But I'm not, but again, as I mentioned earlier, we have so many people out there just disparaging or just cracking down on, if you like the show, they make out you're this horrible person because you happen to like this particular show or this particular episode or what have you, right? So
that was what I was going through when it came to the sequel trilogy. Like I was like bombarded with Star Wars fans going like, wow, like you're like a traitor. I mean, you're not, this shows that you're not a real Star Wars fan, yada yada yada. And I'm like, okay. Like, like I got into Star Wars late. I got into Star Wars when I was like 18. So, and I'm just a casual fan. Like I can live with or without Star Wars. Like I don't really need it in my life. But what can you do at this point? Like like they get really. It's again again just to I don't watch Acolyte, but I feel different. Like people like they want more Star Wars. They just don't want different Star Wars. And by different, I feel like they don't. Yeah, I mean, it's not gone past me that this is a show that featured a lot of people of color, a lot of not just a bunch of white dudes, and like it's not surprising at all. People are like, this is why they don't. Most of them probably don't like it because they just want to either live in the past with the Skywalkers, but again, it's like Carrie Fisher is gone. Harrison Ford does not want to do Star Wars anymore, and Mark Hamill can't keep doing this for the rest of his life.
Right.
So,
well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Harrison Ford? I mean, he wanted to be killed off in Empire Strikes Back. He didn't even want to
Return of the Jedi. It was Return of the Jedi.
I knew it was one of them because I remember him specifically come out saying he wanted his character killed off to not be able to return.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Okay. And then look what happened when they did the follow-up 3 movies. I mean, he was killed in the first one, right? So I'm sure that was probably a stipulation for him when they approached him when he came back to say, no, you need to make sure you kill me off this time.
Well, I think looking at that 7th movie, Force Awakens, you kind of have to not necessarily follow what George did, but you want to honor what George did. Yeah. And as I said before, it's like poetry, it rhymes. They took Han Solo and they kind of thrusted him into the Obi-Wan-ish kind of role, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have Rey, who's now more or less in the Luke Skywalker kind of role. And then you've also got Poe and Finn, who are figuratively, the next Han Solo, the next Leia Organa, because as we come to find out, like Finn turns into kind of a badass. And then you've got Poe Dameron, who is a badass, but becomes the general of the Resistance, right? Yeah. He honors Leia in that way. And I do think that that the structure of that film, yeah, it follows A New Hope, but then look at everything else that has come since then. A lot of stuff has followed New Hope. I would even say the first season of Rebels is very inspired by A New Hope in a lot of certain respects, structurally speaking, for sure. Hell, season 2, they outright utilize Darth fucking Vader as the main antagonist. And what is Darth Vader doing in Empire Strikes Back? He is going ham on the it's not Resistance, but in originals, the fucking Rebels. Wow, why was that so hard to fucking come to? Literally, they're using Darth Vader, the main antagonist from Empire Strikes Back, as the season 2 antagonist for Rebels. Yeah, because he's literally just, what is he doing in Empire? He's hunting down rebels left and fucking right because he wants to find out who fucking blew up the Death Star and what does he come to find out? Oh, it's fucking Luke Skywalker. Oh, guess what? Big twist. Fucking Luke Skywalker's his kid. Okay, what's the big twist at the end of season 2? Oh, fuck, Ahsoka and Vader are fighting again. Holy shit. Oh, shit. Kanan's now blind thanks to, wait for it, Darth fucking Maul.
Yeah.
These movies and these TV shows, it's, again, poetry. It fucking rhymes. And you know what? Going back to the Acolyte, it's 100 years before Phantom Menace. No, it's not. We're not. Okay, if May and Osha directly, if they derivatively decide, oh, we're going to change our names to Skywalkers, then yes, that would obviously be a very tongue-in-cheek, okay, you guys aren't really trying here. But what I do appreciate is that they're taking the concept of what happened to Anakin and how he was created and saying, no, this isn't just a one and done thing. This had to come from fucking somewhere. Darth Plagueis figured this out from somewhere. Is this the origin of that? I don't know. But I do like that this is taking an idea that was established in the 3rd film and even in subsequent comic books made by Marvel Comics today, who are owned by Disney, and saying, yes, this not only happened to Anakin Skywalker, this also happened to these twins earlier on in the timeline. This is not an exclusive thing. The Jedi are not fucking end-all, be-all, perfect people. They also are flawed. They are, as many have pointed out, even Luke Skywalker has pointed out, a dead religion. They fall into their own kind of prophecies, and they are proven wrong time and time again. It's so equatable to the real world, and it just baffles me that Star Wars fans cling to legacy canon as if it is the utmost shit that needs to be kept sacred. It's just baffling to me, honestly. To your point, people feel the need to fucking love the show or hate the show. There is hardly any middle ground to come together and talk about it. I can't really disagree with you that some of the writing in it hasn't been great, because honestly, I'm not going to say it's been more hit for me than most, but I can understand why some people would find some of the dialogue clunky. There's even in the first episode where May fucking says, "Fight me" or whatever. I was like, Yeah, that felt a little forced. Like, I can't disagree with that. I can't, because it, you know, but the thing is, that's inherent to Star Wars. Hell, like, Mark Hamill even asked George, like, why am I saying this ridiculous line about something converters or what? Like, I don't even remember what the line is. Anyone watching that is just it's probably just gonna fucking go over their head, because it's a very minuscule thing in that movie that provides almost no context to the greater story they're trying to tell. But you could look at that and being like, that line delivery wasn't that great. And that's prevalent through the fucking rest of the OG trilogy too.
I agree. I can definitely agree with that. And that's just the thing, right? I mean, I think that's part of the broader issue there's no middle ground to have a sensible conversation of why one person either is enjoying it and why one person is not enjoying it. And then have that discussion as to, well, why do you enjoy it? Okay, I hear you. That makes sense. Well, this is why I don't enjoy it. Okay, you hear me. I'm making sense. And then you part ways, you know, saying, okay, I respect the fact you have your opinion. You respect the fact I have my opinion. And hey, go enjoy the show. I'll continue watching it to continue forming my opinion, and to leave it at that, right? But but that's not what's happening, right? And if it is happening, it's happening very siloed. Very far and few between are those conversations happening. I mean, when you see the amount of, when the next episode, this one dropped, you saw it was like almost immediate, right? It was like, okay, we're on to the new battle now. Pick sides and let's have at it, right? So, yeah.
Speaking of which, something else that's controversial is probably going to be the last thing we talk about before we take off here. There's a new Crooked Man trailer for a new Hellboy movie happening. I honestly thought this was, I know we're totally changing subjects here, but we're running short on time. But yeah, this trailer dropped, I think, Monday.
It dropped Monday morning. Yeah.
Have you seen this trailer, Andy?
I saw bits and pieces because I've been, it's just been a very, very busy week. But I was like, did I miss the announcement that we were getting new Hellboy? Like,
there was no announcement on this one. This one. So when I was on with Anthony on the ACS Universe Monday morning, this dropped, I think, probably halfway into the show.
Yeah, I'm getting it pulled up right now, but
it looks good. Phil, have you seen it yet or no?
I have seen it, and it's funny. Like, I'm not on the hate train, but I'm not on like the immediate love train. You know what I mean? I'm kind of
for what it is, for what I'm seeing from it, it looks good. But to your point, it's like I'm all in 100%. I'm gonna, I'm there day one, right? It's definitely not that for me at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to get I want to mute the audio, obviously, but yeah, this is going to be very. I think it's a different take on what we've seen before. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like,
no,
this to me is. Let's just go ahead and add this shit right here. Mute it off. So it definitely gives off some very horror-esque kind of vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Right? Yeah.
Because the first two from Del Toro were very like, action-packed, traditional, anti-hero, superhero, smashes Nazis, et cetera, et cetera. And what's the word I'm looking for here? Supernatural stuff, right?
Yeah.
The David Harbour film, I don't really know that I have a strong opinion about that one. But I do like,
has definitely more of the horror vibe, to your point. Yeah, definitely has that.
I like that Mike Mignola is actively a part of this movie, the original creator of Hellboy.
And see, for me, that's where I when I saw this the first time, where I tend to lean in a little bit more. I mean, it's no secret. I'm a horror fan. I love the horror genre. Just about anything horror related, I'm going to watch. So when we had played this on Monday on Anthony's show, I definitely leaned more into it because I was like, oh man, this definitely gives me that horror vibe that kind of draws me into it versus what you just kind of described with the other two iterations we've seen.
Yeah, I'm not like a super huge Hellboy fan or anything. Like I've got like one book, and I dig the art. I appreciate Mignola's art, but it's not like one of my favorite characters in comics or by any stretch of the measure. Like, I don't hate it or anything like that, but I don't know. I'm just not super familiar with it. Like, I read the first book. I know Hellboy's like allergic or deathly allergic to pancakes. I think something like that. It's
Yeah,
some goofy shit. Like that's his weakness. He's weak to pancakes, I think, something like that. But in terms of just overall aesthetic, I like Ron Perlman's look. Wasn't too huge on David Harbour, but I like Jack Kesey's look here. I think it's very. I think this is probably the most Hellboy's looked like the comic book version of Hellboy ever. And that's not a knock to the either the previous two, but like, you know, I don't know. I'll watch it. I mean, it definitely looks, you know, cheaper than the other two. Definitely.
Definitely looks like that. Yeah, definitely there. But again, I think that's what I think. When you take, if you kind of take that, what someone's here in the comments. What someone says, again, that horror vibe again for me, just that's what draws me into it. So.
And I think that's a creative avenue you can take Hellboy down to, right? Like
absolutely,
it's something we haven't seen before with the character. I feel like the third film with David Harbour, what the fuck was that one? It was just called Hellboy, wasn't it? It didn't even have any kind of subtitle. Yeah, so it had Mila Jovovich in it. She was like the Blood Queen or whatever. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. But I don't know. I'll probably watch it. Maybe in theaters.
Oh, so that we had Hellboy in 2004, we had Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, 2008, and then we had Hellboy Rise of the Blood Queen, which was 2019, which they considered a reboot.
Interesting. And this one is also another reboot based on
basically.
What about you, Andy? How do you feel about the new Hellboy movie?
I mean, this looked good. I just think it's funny that I'm like, when they announced this, like what happened? Like what? Like I feel I would have seen this somewhere, but you know, I mean, it looks good. I don't think it looks cheap necessarily, but again, it's like this is a lesser known IP. You know, it doesn't have the same recognition as DC or Marvel. So I understand if if it doesn't have that kind of reach yet, then they're probably not going to spend as much on it.
Maybe cheap isn't the right word. Maybe lower budget would probably be the better way to say it. Like
more independent looking,
low budget horror.
Yeah,
definitely. Like something akin to. Oh,
then I'm definitely all in.
Like Robert Eggers' The Witch, or something like I don't even know what would be an apt comparison these days, honestly. Maybe something in like the James Wan camp of like early Conjuring.
Okay.
Something to that effect. Like I get some very like Conjuring, like, you know, Slender Man, very like
Insidious,
yeah. Even like what's that recent one James Wan did? Malignant. There we go.
Okay. Yep.
But very much, it feels like this is something coming out of either Blumhouse or Atomic Monster. Yeah,
I think that's
because Blumhouse is at Universal and Atomic Monster is James Wan's production company.
Oh, I can't remember now who's doing this one, but yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of wish, you know, comic books and superhero stories would kind of take more avenues like this. Maybe Marvel Studios should look at this for how they do Blade.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this article here. I mean, this sentence from this article mentions, you know, however, Hellboy: The Crooked Man seems to be a more grounded horror story rather than a supernatural adventure.
Yeah, that's the vibe I get from it.
Yeah, I was trying to see if it mentioned the studio, but I don't see that it does.
We got one last super chat here before we sign off. What did you think of the third episode of House of the Dragon? You saw it, right, Sean?
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, so if you want to go, or do you want to go first, or I mean, I don't know. Did you see it yet?
I did. I wrote a review for it.
Okay.
I'm writing reviews for Acolyte, The Boys, and House of the Dragon, and I enjoyed it. There were a couple scenes where I had I was taken aback and I was quite shocked. But yeah, I especially enjoyed the way the episode ended, because there was a conversation had between two characters that I wasn't sure was ever going to happen, and it did. And the look on, you know, I'm Team Black for obvious reasons. The look on Rhaenyra's face after hearing what she heard from Alicent was just like, oh, so this all happened because you fucked up.
Yep,
got it. It was glorious. It was absolutely spectacular.
I think a lot of us were waiting to see if that conversation was ever going to happen. And to your point, I'm glad it did. I'm glad it happened early in the season, right? Versus later on. I think the other thing, which we've already talked about, we already announced spoilers as far as what Damon is doing, what he has experienced thus far. when he left Rhaenyra's side, so to speak, when she called him out about, which I think everyone would have seen, the first 2 episodes by now with the Aegon's child getting killed. She blames Daemon, and Daemon typical is denying it, but he knows he's responsible, right? Otherwise he wouldn't be having the issues he has faced in episode 3. My thing is, I'm team Black as well, and my thing is, hearing what was said to Daemon in this episode, I hope it's not true for this season, because Daemon's my favorite character by far across season 1, across this season. I have a bad feeling it's gonna be true. It's because no one's safe in the Game of Thrones universe.
Never.
No one is safe.
Never.
So I'm cringing on the fact that is going to be true, and it's going to happen sooner than later. And I just that's not something else I want to see.
So I'll say this: if they follow what happens in Fire and Blood, he could die this season, or they might hold it off until next season, because what happens, I don't even know if I want to say what happens, because it's so fucking.
Well, I need someone to come in and alter this timeline so he just makes it through.
Well, the thing is like George R.R. Martin has said, the books are the books, and they are tellings of what could have happened. The shows are what did actually happen.
Well, based on what he heard and based on what was said to him, then I think what we know is going to happen to him. Again,
probably.
It's just being my favorite character. Yeah, I definitely don't want to see that happen. But
that's understandable.
But again, I understand. We learned very early on in season 1 of Game of Thrones, no one is safe.
Right.
Rest in peace, Ned. But yeah, we kind of know. So
rest in peace, Ned. Rest in peace, Rob. Rest in peace.
This whole Stark family, pretty much.
Practically the whole Stark family, right.
Who would have? I guarantee you, anyone going into that show then never would have thought Ned Stark was going to meet his demise in that first season.
Right. Anyway, Connor, thank you for the super chat.
It's much appreciate the support. Thank you.
Get the shit fucking out of me. It's like fucking explosions.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I was kind of like,
he was in the zone, and all of a sudden he has an explosion in his ear.
No, I'm listening to it, and then suddenly I because it was so loud compared to like our the audio from our microphones. I'm just like, good lord, what is this?
Yeah. Well, we are past the 2-hour mark. This is where we like to take a step back and say goodbye to everyone in the chat and whatnot, and wrap these episodes up. I'd like to thank the 2 gentlemen who joined me today for today's episode of The Four Nerds. Sean, thank you as always for being available and ready. Andy, thank you again for your first time helping me out. I greatly appreciate it, and all your wisdom and editorial. Like, seriously, I appreciate the both of you for a multitude of reasons. But let's go around the horn, see where everyone can follow y'all. Andy, since it's your first time here, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Well, thank you so much for having me. You can find me at Andrewbyte on all social media. I'm a senior writer for ScreenRant.com, where I write news and interviews. So get all my coverage over there. I'm the editor-in-chief of Multiverse of Color, which is an entertainment outlet primarily focused from voices of the LGBT community and people of color, and any background when it comes to pop culture. And I am also the host of the Showrunner Whisperer, which is a podcast that focuses on going inside the minds of television showrunners and the kind of the challenge that goes with that job. Today, we actually just released part 1 of my chat with Mark Guggenheim, who created Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow, and has worked in the Arrowverse for most of its run, and also other things. So we talked about a lot of things. So part 1 is now out on the website, and part 2 will come out in 2 Wednesdays from now. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate your time and your insight. It's been a lot of fun. Sean, where can people find you, my man?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm on Instagram and X under Nerd Costa Nostra. Yeah, so I'm hoping to get some things out in the next couple months. As if you've heard me on this show before, and shows like ACS and on Nicotina. I mean, I like movies, TV shows, but I like to really focus on the horror genre. I don't feel it gets enough attention as it should, especially this year. There's been a lot of great horror films that have come out this year, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to try to get some things up and going in the next month or so, and we're going to be kind of focusing on that. So,
well, I eagerly anticipate your review of Nosferatu later on this year.
oh man, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for that to come out.
Eggers can't lose. That
Yeah.
dude is a genius.
Yes, I agree. That trailer was fire, absolutely fire.
Well, thank you again to both my panel guests here for showing up on the Four Nerds. And anyone wants to follow me along, it's just at Unfiltered on pretty much everywhere except Twitter, as everyone knows.
Except for Andy.
You guys can catch me on the Eternal Light podcast. Craig and I just uploaded an episode last week. We are going to start doing live shows here in the next couple weeks, right before I leave to San Diego, is where we're planning to do the first one on my main channel, which is now part of this network too. It should be like this episode right now should be viewing there right now. Just search for Unfiltered in YouTube. You'll find my channel there. So feel free to subscribe, notifications, all that bells and whistles and all that shit. That greatly appreciated. And again, search the Eternal Night wherever you get your podcast fix. Mucho appreciato. And of course, you guys can read all my reviews on, as Andy mentioned, Multiverse of Color, that currently include The Acolyte, The Boys, as well as House of the Dragon. And of course, obviously, give the other guys a follow wherever they are, obviously. But yeah, everywhere else, Dawson, Andre, Ryan, just search for their ats right there as it shows right there on the social list and shit. So yeah, that's, I think, where we're going to put a pin in it for tonight. Take care. Stay safe. Nerd on.